Yo YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy SalvationsElite. We are back with another video, guys, and today, man, we're once again addressing the future of Call of Duty and the Call of Duty League as a whole. So basically, Devin Nash, who's a esports expert, I talked about him in a past video when I was talking about what we knew so far about the Call of Duty League. He made a video talking about the esports bubble and about the potential success and failures of the Call of Duty League, the Overwatch League. Basically, all of that wraps into one. Then Tactical Rab, my boy, great dude. I actually got to meet him at Anaheim, so we had a little conversation there. He posted a video about this as well. I agree with a lot of what they both say. I mean, there's a lot of concerns that we all need to have with the future of esports and the potential of failure that the Call of Duty League and, you know, the Overwatch League have down the road. I do have a few counter arguments to throw their way with some of the untapped potential when it comes to Call of Duty viewership and how that could potentially affect Activision and how they're selling these spots. So first of all, I just wanted to summarize Devin Nash's proposal. If you guys haven't watched the video, I highly recommend that you go do watch that video. I really respect Devin Nash and how he approaches these business topics inside of esports, and he does a lot of really good work with Twitch streamers, YouTubers, content creators in general, and has a good business mind for it. And so I highly recommend you go check out his content. Basically, his whole point was that the buy-in for the Call of Duty League is overpriced. The return on investment is going to be low and take a long time if there ever is an actual return on investment. And one of his biggest things, his biggest worries was that the sponsorship for an M-rated game versus like Overwatch or League of Legends could be extremely difficult. So already it's been reported, you know, that League of Legends and Overwatch have had struggles getting sponsorships. And so he thinks that it'll be even more difficult for Call of Duty because it's an M-rated game. So, I mean, I understand that. I think that's a pretty valid criticism. And Tactical Rab was very skeptical as well, and he echoed a lot of the same reasons Devin Nash did, and talk more about the esports bubble as a whole, which I agree with. There is an esports bubble for sure that we do need to be aware of, and there is legitimate concern for the Call of Duty League moving forward. Like, obviously, I'm worried about the success that like localization actually would have. I'm not convinced it works. I'm not convinced that naming teams after cities is the right way to go, especially for Call of Duty. And I'm very concerned about them removing open events and having an only league format with a playoffs at the end. And I really don't know if that's the way to go about it. If you just look at the viewership for Anaheim, for all of the events, Vegas at the beginning of the year, like basically all the events so far this year, the events basically triple or quadruple the viewership of the average league match. That's what I wanted to show real quick, was this Excel sheet that I put together. I used the website Sillinome, which is what Devin Nash has used in his videos before, to get an idea of the open event viewership that Call of Duty has. And so this is what you guys are seeing right here. Obviously, that is significantly higher than the Pro League statistics. So I couldn't like find like legitimate Pro League statistics anywhere. But basically, I mean, Pro League matches average between like 20 to at the most like 60,000 viewers. And I think maybe it peaked at like 75 or 80 during some Optic match at some point this year. But like basically throughout the whole year, like the highest during a league match was like 75,000-ish. That's just a rough estimate. And I mean, of course, during all the events, as you guys can see, they're all like, 100,000. They peak at like 120,000 or so, or fluctuate in between there depending on the event. Obviously more at Vegas because it was the first event of the year, but I mean, my goodness, all the events have significantly more viewership than that. So I'm really surprised for taking away the open event aspects. At least that's reported. We don't know if that's confirmed, but again, like I said in the last video, X and MLG Sundance talked about it on their podcast. And so from all that we know, it's basically confirmed that they're not going to have open events next year. So that is an absolutely legitimate worry. And that's what I wanted to address before I talk about some of the positives, because I still think there is so much potential that Call of Duty, competitive Call of Duty as a whole has, and like so much untapped potential when it comes to, the viewership as a whole. So I think we need to address the popularity that Call of Duty has in North America. The casual Call of Duty fan base is massive. It's basically the biggest console game in America. It's basically always the highest selling console game every single year. Like, to put that into perspective, like Cod Bo4 sold 19.82 million copies, that was reported. And so far, Black Ops 4 sold 14.3 million copies. So obviously, it's extremely popular. And then the player count is even higher than that because naturally, you sell copies from stores, but then there's like resells, there's shares. You're buying off Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, so those don't count as like sales. This is just counting as retail sales, 19.82 million copies, The player count is even higher than that. And a Reddit user last year actually calculated the player count for Call of Duty. And Deserto reported these numbers in an article. As you guys are seeing this picture, basically Black Ops 3 was insanely high high because that summer it was free to play for a month. You could download it for free for a month, so that's why the player count is so high on Black Ops 3. The average is basically 21.7 million people, but that's not counting Ghost because it was on PS3 before it was on PS4, and then it's not counting Black Ops 3, and it's not counting Black Ops 4 because Black Ops 4 had just come out when these statistics were made. So this is basically just based off AW, IW, and World War II. The average player count on PS4 is 21.7 million people on average. They got the player stats based off of medals, off of achievements earned on PSN. It's a fairly accurate representation, but it's not exactly. Let's just say this is an overestimate, so let's just say 20 million players on average per Call of Duty over the past like 5 years or so. So there obviously is a legitimately large player base of people who like Call of Duty and are willing to play it and get achievements. And again, 19.82 million COD Bo4 copies were sold from the store, from retail. Even if you just take the retail numbers alone, and then you compare that to the competitive viewership, I mean, it's not even comparable. Like, let's just say 100,000 people watch a tournament, you know, which is a fairly decent estimate. On average, roughly 100,000 people will watch a tournament. So 100,000 people divided by 19.82 million, which is how many copies World War II sold, is literally 0.05%. So a half of 1% of the player base of Call of Duty. So you're telling me that only 0.005% of the people who buy Call of Duty have an interest in watching competitive COD. It's insane. The fact that's the dropped ball here from Activision and like the lack of marketing, you know, that has been made, and the ability to drive players to competitive, or the interest in driving players to competitive, just has not been there. That is the massive opportunity that Activision has to create really big viewership for competitive Call of Duty. Imagine if even just 3% of the people who buy Call of Duty World War II would have watched events. 3% of the people who bought it is 594,000 people. So if you can go from 0.005% of the players who buy COD World War II to 3% of the players who buy COD World War II, who then become interested in competitive Call of Duty, that will literally multiply the fan base by, 5 times. Go from 100,000 average viewers for a tournament to 600,000 viewers on average for a tournament. Just 3% of the retail sales numbers. Like, I mean, it's insane. That is the potential that competitive Call of Duty has, and it's on Activision now to drive the casual fans to competitive Call of Duty. And they'll be able to do that through a really good league play, incentivizing game battles inside of the game, creating skins inside the game for competitive Call of Duty, and plenty of other things. We'll be able to easily watch competitive Call of Duty right on the main menu of the game itself. That would be a big plus as well. Overall, just promoting the competitive scene, whether it's the players, the casters, or, the events themselves, just more advertising in those senses, or content on YouTube. Like, there's so many avenues they can go that they aren't currently doing to market competitive Call of Duty. Like, I'm very optimistic that they could quickly go from 0.005% to 2 or 3% of the people who buy the game are interested in competitive COD. Like, that doesn't seem that crazy. And at the same time, it would completely revolutionize the competitive Call of Duty scene and bring in so many new fans. There's very likely something that we don't know, like a marketing plan that Activision is pitching to the investors. And so the investors are believing that Activision is actually going to really start driving these casual players into competitive Call of Duty. And so we're going to quickly see that fan base rise. That is a possibility. And if that's the case, if you have 600,000 people watching these events live, you're going to find sponsorships and you're going to find viewership. And like, that is the potential that Activision has, and the potential that competitive Call of Duty still has. And like, you just think about the past, like, there haven't been competitive skins in almost any of the Call of Duties. There's been garbage league play systems basically every single year since Black Ops 2. Like, we haven't had a real league play system. World War II was decent at best, but the game was boring and people stopped playing it because they updated the game too slowly. Anyway, and then in this game, the league play sucks. Infinite Warfare didn't even have a league play. Black Ops 3 had a really crappy league play system. AW had a pretty fun one, but not great. And like, Ghost didn't even have one as well. So we only had one solid league play system, which was World War II's, in 5 years. And so like, it's going to take maybe a few years for that league play system to really start invoking and getting people excited. And if it's a really good league play system that is really fun and incentivizes playing together as a team, playing with your friends, grinding the league play, getting better in competitive Call of Duty. That's where the opportunity is going to be to drive fans into the competitive scene, and that's the first step it takes. Overall, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something new about competitive Call of Duty in that aspect and the future of the Call of Duty League, and drop all your opinions down below on what you guys think the Call of Duty League could be like in the future and whether or not it's going to succeed. Obviously, again, the whole city-based thing worries me, and removing open events is not great either. Hopefully the open event to make it come back sooner than later, and we'll see how long the whole city-based system lasts. So anyway, guys, as always, I'm your boy SalvationsElite. Expect more videos very soon, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.